What is going on, Misfits? Welcome back to another edition of Logician Tim Learns with me, your host, Logician Tim. That's right, this is the show where you get to watch me go from a total gaming newbie to a little more informed gaming newbie. How about that? What is going on, you guys? Hope you had a great weekend. I did, and I'm just glad to be back. I like diving into these new RPGs. I got to tell you, I love what I do. This is a lot of fun, and we are back talking about this Savage Worlds Adventure Edition RPG. Last time we talked about kind of like how to make trait rolls and skill checks, what aces are, what raises are, what critical failures do, what bennies are, and all that kind of good stuff. But tonight we are going to talk about combat. So tonight we're going to try to learn how initiative is handled, what kind of actions you can take on your turn, how to attack, how to apply damage, what happens when you're wounded, just kind of all those type of things as described in this Savage Worlds Adventure Edition RPG. So let's bust open the book here and flip to the combat section here. Where are we at? Page 91. Yeah, we're getting back there in the book. So, Savage Worlds, actually, I've said this before, they recommend kind of using miniatures or some other type of markers when you play. They say that it helps players understand their surroundings, kind of what's going on around you, and allows them to use kind of the terrain that they see to their advantage. Now, of course, miniatures are not for everyone. I'm not a huge miniature person. I don't like painting them for sure. I don't like assembling them or anything like that. I might buy some that were already made. I might do that, but I'm not putting them together. That's not for me. So miniatures are not for everyone, and they do give you some alternatives for in case you're one of those people like me that just aren't into the miniature thing. You can still play this game, and they just make it a little bit different for you. Now, the first thing they kind of tell us in combat is to kind of talk about distance. So, and we mentioned this before on another stream, but distance in Savage Worlds is measured in inches if you're using miniatures. And so they say that 1 inch is equal to 2 yards of kind of real life, whatever that is. So if you're playing in your imagination, then you just think, okay, 1 inch is 2 yards, all right? And that comes into play like when you think of things like distance of your ranged attacks as well as your movement as well. What is up, Misty? Good to see you, my dude. Time, they say during combat, time is kind of broken down into rounds, which is pretty typical. And the rounds last about 6 seconds each, meaning that 10 rounds would equal roughly 1 minute. I can do math over here. Quick math. I got this. Now, to determine initiative in combat, basically like kind of see who goes first, who goes second, and so on, Savage Worlds uses these action cards that came in the box set. All right, so I'm gonna bust these out real quick. And these are basically, they're oversized, which are cool. I mean, you see they're pretty big. Pretty big cards. They're oversized, ordinary playing cards with the jokers left in. So you have like ace, king, queen, jack, 10, 9, all the way down of each suit. All right, and the jokers are in here as well. All right, and so you don't have to have this action card set. You can actually just do this with any type of regular playing cards. All right, so how this works is at the start of each round, the GM is going to deal each wild card. Remember, the wild card is like an important character, a player character, other important characters like important villains and named people, right? Not like your wolf or zombie or snake or whatever like that. They're not going to do that for them. But all the important people get an action card. All right, and the GM is going to deal one out. Extras like your wolves and your zombies and whatnot, they will get one action card basically for all of them. So if you're fighting like 5 wolves, then the pack of wolves are going to get one action card. You're not going to give one to each one. That kind of makes it easy to manage kind of large groups of enemies instead of like worrying about, okay, wolf 1 got this and wolf 2 got this, and no, you don't have to worry about that. You just deal all the wolves or all the zombies or whatever, just one action card. Now, the GM is going to shuffle this deck after each round that a joker is dealt out. So basically, when the round first starts, everybody's going to get their action card, and that's going to determine who goes first, right? Now, the next combat round, everybody's going to get another action card, right? So that the initiative order changes each round. Now, when a joker is dealt out on one of them, well, the next round around, the GM is going to take all the cards and shuffle them up before handing out the action rounds. And that just keeps things a little bit random for you when you're playing the game. Now, so once the cards are dealt out to everyone, what they call the countdown begins. All right, and the GM starts each round. They kind of hand out these cards. Then they're going to count down from the ace down to 2. So ace, king, queen, jack, and so on down to 2. Now each group will resolve their actions when their card is called, right? So if you have an ace, obviously you're going to go first. The next highest card is going to go second, and so on. And remember, again, this is the order for this round. On the next round of combat, the GM is going to deal out new cards to everyone. Now, if there's a tie, they're resolved in suit order, which is actually reverse alphabetical order. So you go spades, hearts, diamonds, and then finally clubs. So if you both have aces, the ace of spades are going to be highest, then hearts, and then diamonds, and then clubs. That's how that works. Now, if you do happen to get a joker, you're actually very lucky. So in this game, you can act whenever you want to in the round. So if you want to go first, you can go first. You can actually even interrupt somebody else's action and go, no, I'm going to jump in here. All right. And so you can do that. I'm not sure how exactly that would work out, but it seems like, okay, they made their move and you're like, no, wait, let me jump in right here, and you can take your action first. Kind of sounds like fun. You also get, so if you get the joker on your round, you also get a +2 to all trait and damage rolls for that round. All right, so if you get the joker, you're going to get some extra damage. Going to get an extra +2 on your trait rolls. So try out your things when you get those jokers. So kind of fun stuff. It's something different than just, roll for initiative. I kind of like the idea of these cards, and I like the fact that they're oversized. For some reason, that just makes it a little bit cooler for me. I normally don't like oversized cards, but since they're initiative cards, I kind of like it for whatever reason. So yeah, good stuff. I like it. Now, what kind of things can you do on your turn? So in Savage Worlds, you can move and you can take one regular action, like attacking or casting a spell, something like that, which is fairly typical for RPGs. You can also take free actions, and so you're probably familiar with what free actions are. Things like speaking like a short sentence or two, moving like a short distance, like that's equal to your pace or less, falling prone or dropping an item on the ground. Those are all free actions. That doesn't cost you your action for that round. And what's kind of cool here, they actually allow you to take several free actions on your turn at the same time. So maybe you're speaking while you're dropping an item, for example. They say it's really left up to the GM to determine kind of how much is too much free actions for a player to take. Kind of use your common sense. Some free actions, they say, that actually happen automatically at the beginning of each turn, like when you have the shaken effect. You need to roll to see if you recover from that shaken. That's also a free action. It doesn't cost you like your turn or anything like that. So I'm going to be going over the shaken in just a few minutes. Now, lots of stuff that you can do on your turn, and the book covers all types of movement, from like running to covering difficult ground and navigating hazards, jumping high or jumping far distances, and so forth. So all the rules are here for you for that type of information. But tonight we're talking about combat, so let's talk about attacks. That's the action we want to talk about right now. Of course, you have melee attacks and you have ranged attacks. When making melee attacks, you need to beat a target number to see if your attack hits first, okay? And this target number is your opponent's parry score, right? So if your attack rolls over their parry score, then you successfully hit them, and then you'll be able to roll for damage. We'll get into that in just a minute. Now, ranged attacks are a little bit different. So you remember the shooting skill covers kind of everything from like bows to pistols to rocket launchers to submachine guns. All that is covered under the shooting skill. Throwing things like knives or grenades or rocks or spears or whatever else you want to throw, that uses the athletic skill. So it's kind of broad spectrum of stuff that you cover. Now, all ranged weapons will have a range stat that is represented by 3 numbers. It looks something like 5/10/20. All right. So this stands for short, medium, and long. all right, that range for that weapon. So it'd be 5 yards, 10 yards, and 20 yards for that weapon. Now, when doing ranged attacks, the target number to hit something is at short range is always a 4. Okay, firing at longer ranges will add penalties to this, and so medium is going to have. So if you're firing at short range, it's just flat 4 that you have to beat. If you're firing at medium range, you're going to get a -2 penalty, and long is at a -4 penalty. And extreme range, which is they tell us is anything up to 4 times the weapon's longest range, that has a -8 penalty. So it gets harder, obviously, to hit things the further they are away from you. So that makes sense. So, and that should, again, to see if you hit them. So if you know what you need to do, like what you need to roll to see if you hit the target, now kind of let's learn what happens after you hit them. All right, so I hit them, now what? After a successful hit, either by melee or by ranged attacks, you are then going to roll for damage, all right? So ranged attacks will do kind of a fixed damage that is listed on the stat of the weapon. The example they give us is a pistol. A typical pistol is going to do 2d6 damage. So if you hit them, you're going to go, okay, let me roll this 2d6 damage, and we'll go from there. Now, melee weapons are a little bit different. They take into account the strength of the person wielding the weapon as well as the weapon itself. So someone with a D12 strength using a longsword, which is a D8 damage, weapon damage, they would roll their D12 for their strength and then roll their D8 for the weapon, and they add those together to get the damage. So you can see that high strength importance of having that high strength along with that heavy damage, weapon damage, can really equal up to some really nice melee damage there. So it's important to note, though, that all damage rolls can ace. And so you remember the ace, this means when you roll the highest number possible for that die. So if you're rolling a D12 for our strength check or whatever, you roll a 12 on that D12, well, that's an ace. And so when this happens, basically the dice explode and you get to roll again and add those two numbers together. So that can equal up to a lot of damage for you. So pretty cool stuff. They also have bonus damage as well. So if you get a raise on your attack roll, so you remember the raise is meaning that you roll 4 or more over the target number. So for every 4, that's 1 raise. So 8 would be 2 raises. So for every 4 or more you hit for over the target number, you get a raise. And when this happens, you get bonus damage. And in this case, you will get to add a 1d6 to the final damage. And what's kind of cool is this 1d6 that you roll, it can ace as well for even more damage. So yeah, kind of cool. You can like rack up this awesome bonus damage and just really wreck stuff. Sounds like fun. Patrick Barnes over on YouTube, he says, I'm here now. I see you started 13 minutes ago, so I'm going to need you to repeat everything you said in the first 13 minutes. Thank you for your cooperation. I'll be glad to do that for you, Patrick. Let's just rewind the whole thing. No, you can go back and watch it. It's like the greatest thing about the internet. Just go back. Thanks for coming here, Patrick. Good to see you, my dude. So, all right, so that's how you, so we kind of talked about applying the damage, right? No, we talked about bonus damage. Now we're going to talk about applying damage. So now that we know kind of how much damage that we've done, you kind of need to see what happens to your enemy after you got this damage sitting here, right? Now, let's say you roll a really bad damage roll. If the damage roll is less than the toughness attribute of your enemy, then they're basically just kind of beat up a little bit, but there's no like game effect. They're not wounded or anything like that. They're just kind of like, ow, that hurt, man. So if you roll a really bad damage roll, it's really not going to do much to them if it's lower than their toughness. Now, if the damage is equal to or higher than their toughness, then they are shaken. And we're going to be going over shaken in just a second. Each raise on the damage, meaning 4 over their toughness, will also inflict a wound. And wounds are very key. And we're going to be going over that here now too. So first, let's go over shaken. Basically, when you're shaken or you make somebody else shaken, they are rattled. Got that? Yeah, shaken, rattled. Okay, whatever. They can only take free actions on their turn if they're shaken. Also, on the start of their turn, they have to attempt to recover from being shaken by making a spirit roll as a free action. So they're going to do a roll against their spirit attribute, and it's not going to cost them their turn. Now, if they fail, then they remain shaken, and that's just going to be their turn. If they succeed, then they are no longer shaken, and then they can act normally that turn. All right, but it just kind of forces them to make a save roll, right? Now, important note here, you can use bennies. Remember those benefits, those tokens you get? You can use those to remove your shaken status actually at any time. Even when it's not your turn, you can have that removed. So they are shaken if your damage roll is equal to or higher than the enemy's toughness. Just remember that. Now, if your damage is 4 or more over their toughness, then they're shaken and they get a wound. So let's kind of talk about wounds for just a second. Now, for every raise on the damage roll, meaning 4 over their toughness, they're going to get this wound. Now, if an extra, like a wolf or a zombie or no-name person or whatever, if they get 1 wound, then they are considered incapacitated. Okay, basically this means that they're dead or they're injured or otherwise they're just out of the fight. Okay, now wild cards like, player characters and like named villains and stuff like that, they can take 3 wounds and still kind of function. Now, any further damage that they take doesn't create any more wounds, but it'll actually incapacitate them instead. Now, for each wound that a character suffers, they're going to get a -1 cumulative penalty to your pace, which is your movement, and all your trait rolls up to a maximum of -3. So for those 3 wounds, if you get up 3 wounds, you're going to have a -3 to your movement as well as your trait rolls. So it gets kind of tough on you. Now, if you suffer 3 wounds and you get some more damage, then you don't suffer any more wounds, like I just said. Now you are incapacitated, and you can't perform any actions, but you are still dealt action cards on when the round is started. Now, when you are incapacitated, you have to immediately make a vigor roll against your vigor attribute. Now, if you critical failure on your vigor roll, well, that's it, my dude. You're done. You're done. Your character's dead. It's over. Don't get a critical failure on your vigor roll when you're incapacitated. What is up, Scooty? Good to see you, my dude, over there on Misfits of Tabletop Facebook group. Good to see you, my dude. Yeah, if you're incapacitated, critical failure means that you're dead. Now, if you just fail, then they have an injury table for you to roll on. It's kind of funny. It's decent. So if you fail your incapacitation roll, you roll in the injury table. The injury is considered permanent, and you are now in bleeding out status, which I'm going to get to that in just a second. Just know it's really bad. So don't fail or get a critical failure on when you're incapacitated. It gets ugly really quickly. Now, if you succeed this roll, then you're still going to roll on this injury table, except that these injuries are going to go away when all your wounds have healed. All right. Now, if you get a raise, which means like 4 over the target number of that vigor, then you're going to roll on the injury table, but the injury goes away in 24 hours or when all the wounds are healed, whichever is first. Okay. Now, extras who are incapacitated have to make a vigor roll as well. Those that succeed, this is kind of interesting. So if you got this wolf or goblin or whatever it is down here, it's no-name creature, if they succeed and they're incapacitated, they succeed, they must either be cared for, taken prisoner, or released. And the book says that this can present some interesting challenges for the characters after the combat is over, and you kind of got these goblins sitting there like you got to do something with them, right? It forces you to do something with them. So kind of interesting. I'm not sure exactly what you do with all these like wounded goblies. I don't know. What do you do with them? I guess you just kill them. That's kind of messed up, but yeah, you could. I wanted to go over the bleeding out. So if you fail your incapacitation roll, like I said earlier, you're going to start to bleed out. And this means that you're basically dying, and you're going to have to make a vigor roll on the start of your turn. Now, if you fail this vigor roll, then you're dead. You're done, dude. If you succeed it, then you survive, but you have to roll again on the next turn. All right, so you're just kind of hanging on. You just lived on that round. Now, if you get a raise on this roll, then you are stabilized and you don't have to roll anymore. So you kind of like stabilize yourself. Now, other characters can also help you stop bleeding out by making a healing roll on you as well. And so that's what we're going to get into next, is this information about healing. So speaking of healing, nice segue, Tim. How do you heal in Savage Worlds? Well, you use the healing skill, of course, right? What else would you do? Now, each attempt at healing requires 10 minutes per wound. It's actually 10 minutes per wound level of the patient. So if somebody that you're trying to heal has 2 wounds, that's going to take 20 minutes just to attempt to heal them. All right. So a successful healing skill attempt will remove just 1 wound. Now, if you get a raise, then it's going to remove 2 wounds. But if you fail, it's not going to remove any wounds. And if you have a critical failure when you're trying to heal somebody, it actually increases the victim's wound level by 1. So yeah, you could actually mess them up. Now, Patrick's asking a question over here on YouTube. He says, if I remember right, the last video, a critical failure is rolling a natural 1 on both your regular die and the wild die. Yes, that's correct, Patrick. If a critical failure is always rolling the lowest number, a 1, on your D6, which is the wild die, and on your attribute or your trait die, whatever you want to call it. Whatever skill you're trying to roll against. Yes, both ones means a critical failure. So the odds are kind of lower since you need 2 of those. But as I suggested in the mechanics section last week, there are some very the consequences are very severe, and I think that matches up because it is kind of a rare thing. So yeah, if you do a critical failure while you're trying to heal somebody, you actually increase the victim's wound level by 1, making it worse, right? Now they have this thing called the golden hour, which I thought this was a cool addition. You can only attempt to heal wounds once within the first hour the wounds were sustained. So if you fail, somebody else can attempt to do that heal, but you're kind of done for one reason or another, like you just can't heal, like you suck at it or whatever reason, right? But somebody else can try again. Now, once the wounds are over an hour old, only natural healing can heal the wound. So this kind of puts some kind of stress and some pressure on the players to maybe you're done with this one combat, you just beat this one foe, instead of pushing on to the next layer or whatever that you're going to, you kind of need to stop and at least attempt to heal your wounds before going to the next one, because once those wounds are over an hour old, only natural healing can heal them. So yeah, if you have wounds that you didn't get healed in that first hour, they have this natural healing for you. And this is where you're going to make a vigor roll once every 5 days. All right, once every 5 days. Now, a successful roll is going to heal one of your wounds. And if you have a raise, like an awesome heal, then it's going to heal 2 of your wounds. All right. Now, again, this is once every 5 days you get to do this. Now, a critical failure is going to increase your wound by 1. So they say, like, maybe it was an infection or, blood loss, or, you aggravated the injury trying to heal it, whatever way, but in some way you made it worse. And so a critical failure is going to increase your wound level. So yeah, kind of cool stuff. These are kind of the basics of combat in the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. This chapter kind of keeps going on there. There's a lot of situational rules in here in the book for more, just kind of advanced combat or advanced situations. There's AE attacks, like there's being entangled and bound, called shots, kind of how cover works, obstacles, disarming your enemies, grappling, all types of cool stuff, mounted combat, improvised weapons, non-lethal damage, all types of info here for you to mess around with and adapt your combat to the situation at hand. So they did a really good job of adding a lot of mechanics here that you can choose to adapt to your game if you like those sorts of things. I mean, it goes on for a long time. Prone, ranged weapons and melee, readying weapons, recoil, shotguns, suppressive fire. It goes on and on and on. Now, one of the cool things that I found was this size and scale part. They included it they alluded to this in the chapter on character creation, but didn't really cover it much. I found it here in the combat section. It sounds pretty cool. So there's a size table in the book ranging from tiny, which is like -6, like a fairy or something like that, to gargantuan, which is a +6. So from -6 to +6. Now, when creatures of different sizes attack each other, the smaller creature adds the difference between its scaled and its target to its attacks. So they give an example here. So like if a fairy, which is -6, they're going to add +10 to throw a bolt at a huge dragon. So they're going to get it +10 because it's easier to hit something larger than you. Now, since it's harder to hit something smaller, and the smaller it is than you, the harder it's going to be, then the creature is going to subtract the difference from its attack. Anyways, I think it's kind of cool. I like the way that they add and they subtract, like how hard it is to hit something based on the size. I thought that was kind of cool. I think that they allude to something else with damage and size on another table. I didn't get a chance. I went and looked, but it didn't quite make sense to me. I'm going to research that a little bit more to see how damage relates to size, because it wasn't really clear in this section. So anyways, that's about all I wanted to cover in the combat system. I'll get it out. Overall, it seems very diverse, and it seems like it would work in many different situations. So next time I'm going to be covering the chapter about powers, so don't miss that tomorrow. Do me a favor, like the stream, hit that subscribe button down there. I think it's like right down there. It's free. Leave me a comment. I love seeing the comments, and I try to reply to all of them if I can. Share the stream. Many of you have been sharing the videos on social media, Reddit, on Discords and forums and all over the place, and I really do appreciate that. It helps out a lot, and I love seeing new faces right here. Patrick has one last question. Are there mechanics for dodging, blocking, and parrying? Yes, there are. I did not go into them because the parry is basically just your natural stat of being hit. I did not see one against blocking, unless I just missed it. Let me double check here for you. There are defend. So defense against melee attacks with a defend maneuver. This increases her parry by 4. All right. But you cannot perform any other multi-actions, all right? You can move naturally, but you cannot run. The bonus lasts until the beginning of the next turn. So you remember your parry is the level that they need to be at or above to actually even hit you, all right? So like defend would raise your parry by +4, and it just kind of restricts some of the things that you do. So yeah, there are some other things that you can do in here for that, but kind of neat stuff. I like it. It's pretty neat stuff. All right, that's it for me tonight. I will see you all tomorrow night. We're going to be going over the power section so we can figure out how to magic and stuff like that is handled in this very diverse system of Savage Worlds. All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye.